Good afternoon, everybody. Right. I hope those who are online can hear me, and I hope those who are in the audience can hear me. We are here to celebrate the launching of two books. One is it's Phoenix. You are. I'm a racist, and someone to blame. Now, the first one actually was launched online. There was a pre-launch discussion about a year ago, and I was privileged to be part of that event. So I spoke at that event, and I think Tina's organized it, and she has she saved the recording, and it's on Facebook. I updated my Facebook status so that anyone who wants to know what I had to say about that collection can access that through my Facebook. A quick word about that book is, in my mind, a very interesting and important contribution to Sri Lankan poetry in English. And also, as I mentioned at that launch, it was a bilingual kind of collection. The poems were in Sinhala as well. I felt that the Sinhala poems were published separately. That would have generated interesting discussion, useful discussion, although there's nothing wrong in putting both languages, a book in both languages. Now, this book, first of all, as someone who has never written a novel, I am always impressed by anyone who can write a novel. Right? But one should not judge the worth of a novel by comparing it with novels that have not been written. You assess it in terms of other kinds of books similar to that, to this. And of course, in and of itself, what does it tell us? A couple of days ago, yesterday, I was watching one of these silly romantic comedies or Definitely Maybe. And there was this character who says that she collects Jane Eyre, various editions of Jane Eyre. She says, I read Jane Eyre once or twice a year, and each time it tells me different things. While at the same token, if any of you read this 3 times, you get 3 different stories. And each of us who read this will take something different from what's in these pages. Anupama has been very brave to write a personal story. She's not, as she mentioned a little while ago, it's biographical. And as she has bought some insurance at the beginning of quoting someone covering the hood. So Miller, while I was gone, half-truths, truths, you don't know what is right, what is true, and what is not. So part of it is biographical because she says in her introduction that she is not writing, you can read it any which way you like. It's a bit arrogant also, that's okay. As far as I'm concerned, I'm writing it for myself. I have some wounds I need those to be healed. That's why I did this. And it is biographical of this. You have a picture here and you have a picture at the back. So it's her story, right? So she is not being defensive of KJ. And that's pretty honest. The problem with is the style she has used the style of omniscient, omniscient, or when you are writing is you tell your story, and invariably the versions of the same truths that she talks about, same incidents of the other characters, how they read or do not read the various incidents, emotions, uh, and interactions among the characters that gets played down or it doesn't get written at all. So there is that stylistic problem in any biographical novel. Anupama knows this. People say that the first novel tends to be biographical, and what aspiring writers are usually told by people who are literally critics, publishers, and fellow writers who say, no, don't publish a first novel, write it, keep it aside and write a second novel, and then go back to it and do something else with it. But for her, it is cathartic. She has to get this out of her system. When I read the first page, her introduction, she says, I'm not writing for you. Writing this for myself. The first thought that came to my mind is by the hell you publish it. But then there is a certain finality that comes with publication. Because if you had it as a journal, you can have it on a Word file, you can always play with it. You can rewrite it, edit it, add certain things, take out certain things, and with time, the way you view the incidents and the people and the processes that she has described can change. And so you can keep amending them, and the movies never really get hit. I don't know whether this exercise can lead the moods that she believes exist, and whether that purpose is kind of fulfilled with this. I hope so. I would also hope that she writes a second novel, because that one might be a better one usually. And less, as you get immersed in your own little thing, and you can see that in this. There are certain inaccuracies, something I would be a good editor. Journalist typos in 1980. Things like that. But those are small things. What is redeeming about this whole thing is that she has been honest about a whole range of emotion: fear, anger, bitterness, regrets, small joys, small consolations, so all kinds of tragedies. And but she has not been, she has not held herself back. That is what is nice. She's quite open. This is what I felt. I think this person is a rich, I think that person is a God. And you can see it. So if it is merely a cathartic exercise, then I think that's okay. I think that's for you. But as so there is a beginning and an end. There's a small story. What she described at the beginning, and how the family and individuals in the family deal with the particularly traumatic experience. So woven in, stories of each of these individuals and the family to give some depth and context to the decisions people have made, the kinds of responses each one has to various situations. That's good, but then what we see primarily is the storyteller. The narrator is very present. She's pretty well fleshed out. Some of the characters are, some of the characters are not. I told this to Mahendra Prasad Masibula when he wrote Anika, which is a story that was a very well interesting book. I think that it's not as good as Sankirtan, and not as good as Apulia. But it's a story that spans several generations. The first generation is very well, all the characters are fresh and blood characters. They develop them very well. Second generation, but by the time the fourth, fifth generation, they're very skeletal, it's like caricature. And I told it, if you take a story like 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, that's 7 or 8 generations, maybe 9, I'm not remembering. But there's no one who is a cartoon character. Even the incidental characters, you feel are there. You can sense it, you can smell it, you can hear their voices. Whereas in Manipur, you will get to finish the story. So the story as a narrative, something to think about, it works. Whether that is something that I found missing again in someone to blame. This is not a story. This is these types of stories we all have experienced or we have heard of. Whether we have experienced or seen this exact type of situation. There are other similarly tragic incidents, chain of incidents which lead to certain kinds of outcomes, causing same kinds of emotional trauma. Those who are concerned does not have to be illness, does not have to be as part of depression, situation where there's a city going on, a lot of characters who look at pleasure, the people's misery. But these are real situations which all of us are not foreign to it. It's not necessarily a Sri Lankan story, right? We tend to think that this culture, across time and space. These are human beings. So those things are real, and that is positive about this book because it permeates those things with a certain level of authenticity. You don't feel that they are. In fact, again, we see that lost in the narrative. That's the problem with the novel and others get left out. There are somehow lesser characters in the entire story because we really don't know. We really don't know what they think, what they feel. It's only the version of what they are, who they are, what they feel that we have. Which is okay if I can go some other thing. The story, but it's a personal family story. So to get rid of the justice, I think with good enough, fair enough, objective, and this fun. And actually put together a story. We all have stories, but make it go from page 1 to page 2. And very slowly the automatic practice to take it. I have time to not employ and this year I read this in 2 days. And that's what I got from it. So it's a very readable. It's a fast read. You can go through it very fast. But I think the time is good for 5 years from now. She will drop a lot of things, add a lot of things. There are two sides of this is not the growth page. It's a it's in my head. So 3 or something like that. Where she says, actually, third page. The evaluation of the first draft of this book, I was informed completely without my little readers from final say to final B, but then it is no longer be my story. Then you say that format is going to be lost to it. If you were to interject comments that you had, you have to justify that to anyone. Fiction, one sense, or you to say this. It's broad, you have to be apologetic, you don't have to explain these things. Nothing is mean, that's not. It must be touched at the extent. Frameworks of logic, you can do it in some other way. You have to make that point, footnotes, those are stylistic preferences. I'm not very impressed by that, but I'm sure there will be others who think that's necessary. We use to. But having said that, I think that should be enough for the book worth time. It's a story worth reading. It will tell you a little bit about other people, it will tell you about yourself. So read something about myself and about the kind of society we live in. But more importantly, the human condition, which is common to us all, comes in different ways, different times, at the door. As I mentioned, the degree of equanimity we can deploy to deal with the vicissitudes of life that doesn't happen equally. Those are qualities. Of course. But I look forward to the second one, which I have to have the first one. And then she might, like all of us, give it a embarrassed about the first one. Like we are first collection of this collection of stories. And that is not a bad thing. But I would urge you not to read this book as a friend or sister, but as someone's story, which is also your story. Story of people you know, people you have heard about, and if that gives you some insights into the world we live in, the society we live in, the culture, which we inherit, and our human condition, that is, I think, evolved.
Thank you. That is Malendra, always supportive, always constructive, a good friend, not a fair weather friend, a very good friend. But he can be brutal when I do terrible mistakes when it comes to writing. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, I would like to listen to Aman. Aman and I, as I told you earlier, used to work together. For some reason, I have these friends who never, forget me. Today, I have my friends from my school. We were friends. Grade 1. Nearly 20 of my friends from my school are here. And then I have friends from my training college. And then I have others from different schools I used to work. The thing is that I don't feel that I do anything. I don't call people. I don't visit people. You know that I have a lot of dogs. So that is my excuse, but then it's a very real excuse. I can't leave them. There's nobody to take care of them. So I don't get to visit their special days or anything. But then when I ask for help or when I invite them to come and be with me on a special day, they come. And I must have done something quite very meritorious in one of my previous lives to be like that. But whatever it is, I'm really grateful. Thank you very much for being here. And Aman is somebody like that. He has been a good friend since 1999. That's a long time. Really. When we think about the way friendships are made and broken at a very frightening speed. So friends to remain for 20, 30 years, that's a long, long time. So Aman, as I mentioned earlier, is from Pakistan. He's one of the people I met at a particular time in my life who helped me to maintain that interest in literature. We will talk about Pakistani poetry, human tradition. So I think I would like to share this day also with him. So Aman, would you like to say something about that? Your turn. Aman. Aman, can you hear me?
Hello,
Yes, Aman.
hello.
Yes. I can hear you.
Okay, this is Amanullah. Amanullah Waqas is from Pakistan, and I'm very thankful to Anupama for giving me this opportunity to talk about a book. Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So anyway, again, hello everyone. I know Anupama as my colleague, friend from 2003. We were teaching at same place, and she is a wonderful personality, as I know. I'm not a good reader, and by profession, I'm accountant now. By then, I was a teacher. But anyway, someone say, once you're a teacher, always teacher. But currently, I'm in a finance profession. So, as I say, I'm ordinary reader. So, maybe my view is not a scholarly view. Anyway, just as I have gone through the PDF form of the book, again, I'm the old reader. So, book is the hard form of the book is very convenient for rather than the PDF form. As we have technical barriers now also, as meeting is going. The book is about, as I gone through, the hardship of the life, problems we are facing in the life, especially the family from the middle class. And what I see here in her book, I'm also father of three girls. So some way touch me in the story. I also have it. But my eldest daughter, she is in grade 10 now. Anyway, so as we go through the book, this is quite interesting. And dialect, and actually thing is that it is in the actual form. Actual form, I say that there is no such genre or any framework followed. What she has in mind, she has written there. So there's no care of any law or other law. What she had in the mind have gone. So again, the real thing quite difficult, and that I have found here, because when you write a cosmetic, it will take you in such go, and you may find it more interesting to do. But when you talk about the real life, then it is difficult to do. In this book also, if I talk about the language, I'm not a native level. It's not my native language. So if we read it in one go, you find it a little bit difficult. We have to read it again. Then we come across what is going on. And what I have found is a lot of pain, misery, difficult challenges, as we have in the life. She has portrait, and as she have the tag that she is the what is it, that she is racist. She has written that she has that blame, and I say that everyone is there. But now, if we see that the old era, there's only two races in the human issue. The human sapiens are two races, male and female. And in old area, we see that women was dominant. And women is dominant. So we can see, especially in our subconscious, the bodies are there, are female. Again, I say I can't read that much, but I know I'm. So as they say, is now is the male dominant. So in the male dominant, the woman is facing more risks. But again, women see her father, and if he has a father, then he is like not the husband. In other way, the male see her mother, the role model, and her sister, not her. It's a norm, what I feel. It's happened. Now, these all things are going to be finished. Now it's not going to go further. Now we are going to be changed from human sapiens to human Jews. People, I will not be backtracing it further. The male, female, currently, like in Pakistan, past gender equality law. So these things are going to be countered with the laws, and after 2060, because what is the human view? Human views are half is the human, half is the machine part. Like a car, you can replace the engine, you can tire, but you can take over the vehicle, so on. So human is going to be like, but before that, the human population is going to be controlled. Almost 500 million. Then humans are going to shift next time, and everything will be destroyed. Maybe it's just what we have observed from the books. That's going to. Okay, the topic coming back. Someone to be blamed. It's in a normal life, in the family also. Someone is doing as a brother, sister, like sibling, cousin. If someone is making any mistake, so there is a one person who always blame for them. So, anyway, very nice topic and very good book. Hope you will carry on and come up with some professional thing also. I like it very much. Again, waiting for the hard books or the other two books that also are going to read. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone. Patiently you hear. Thank you.
Can't hear you, Anupama.
Kanchana, are you ready? Kanchana? Kanchana is getting ready. So, if so, then we will get on with Nisansala's presentation. It's just she's going to be the next presenter, right?
Anupama, do you want me to speak? I can't hear properly.
We have a problem.
I can't hear you properly. Anupama? Anupama, can you hear me?
How is it now?
Can you
Yes,
hear me,
I can hear
Anupama?
you very well. Yes, I can hear you.
Is that my
Shall
turn
we-
now?
Hanvi?
Yes, Kanchana, it's
Ah,
your turn.
Is it my turn? It's working.
It's working. It's working. Shall we?
Okay, then shall I talk? Okay, then thank you very much, Anupama. So, Anupama, I think as all of you know that Anupama Godakanda and I have known each other for around 8 years. Anupama and I share a special bond. So to start the story, we started a publishing company in 2012 simply to get my books published. Anupama had finished her Phoenix and was looking for a publisher at that time. I'm a risk taker, therefore I considered publishing her book. So in 2015, we published Phoenix. After a few months, my life went downhill a few times, and I was in a storm and didn't want to continue publishing. Then in 2016, when Phoenix received an award at the Godege National Award ceremony, I was motivated to keep publishing. You could be wondering if I'm such a child to be moved by a literary award. Yes, of course, I was really young back then, and I still get excited when one of our books is shortlisted or award. Pretty childish, right? But let it be. I must confess that I am not a critic. However, I am a reader. As a reader, I believe I have some knowledge of books. And who can refuse Anupama's invitation to be a part of her launch? So I took the challenge again. Her debut novel is titled Someone to Blame. The title of her book was what initially drew me in. It's somewhat ambiguous. I read it in two ways. The first one is that someone is to blame for what has happened to you, or you have someone to confront about their actions, or you need to find someone to blame in order to feel better. So I wondered what was inside. V.S. Naipaul once said an autobiography can distort facts, can be realigned, but fiction never lies. It reveals the writer totally. Nadine Gordimer has said nothing factual that she writes or says will be as truthful as her fiction. John M. Coetzee has said all autobiography is storytelling. All writing is autobiography. Anupama describes a novel, Someone to Blame, as a semi-autobiography. So I'm not sure what to think about what all these writers say and what Anupama said. So I'm not going to get into that. And it's a relief that Anupama says it doesn't really matter to her how we choose to read her story. Now that she said it, I'm going to use it to my advantage. Actually, the book is extremely intriguing to read. I must mention that it is quite readable and I enjoy how Anupama has used language in the novel. The story is about a family and most of what she says about society is still true today. There are some small changes, but when you read the story, you won't wonder if it really happened or if something like that could happen. I found a lovely piece of writing on the back cover of her book. This is a story that has to be told so that I may heal and continue. As a result, I decided what I should say. I won't discuss the literary, sociological, or political aspects of the novel. Instead, I decided to talk about the psychological aspect of the story, which I thought was important to include in the discussion. And I want to thank Anupama for bringing it up. Families don't know that the wounds they cause in their children and other loved ones are not easy to heal. In fact, in a country like Sri Lanka, where family is seen as a sacred institution, your parents and elders are always correct. They will always be able to control the young ones. Where kids are taught to always respect their elders. Most of the decisions you have to make as an adult will be made by your parents. Blood is said to be thicker than water, and we always try to work to make it, work to prove it. When you read Anupama's book, you will see plenty of examples of what I'm talking about. Anupama hasn't just written a book. I think she's written a book where most of us can see ourselves in the character. Maybe not always, but sometimes we can see ourselves in those characters. There were a number of them from the start. You can find yourself in the protagonist, mother, father, sister, and in laws, and as well as in protagonist. I got the impression from the work that despite the title, Someone to Blame, Anupama doesn't want to blame anyone. She wishes to exonerate the characters of their actions, whether intentional or unintentional. Anupama's work reminded me of K. Jayatilaka's Charitatuna, in which the eldest child is treated similarly to the protagonist. I'm also the oldest child in a family of two, so I remember being treated exactly like the main character. There is a distinction between the protagonist and me. I never condoned the wrong I perceived was being done to me and fought for equality. My parents had to treat me the same way they treated my brother because I was a tough fighter. But that was a physical thing. So no one from the outside could say that I was mistreated. But I was not emotionally or psychologically supported enough. I did not receive the same amount of affection and kindness that my brother did. Even though I believed I didn't care while reading Anupama's novel, I know I did. Some events may look very subtle but traumatic because the pain is inflicted by the loved ones. If we want to heal, what do we want to heal? It's the trauma we want to heal. Trauma is something that everyone has, even if they may not realize it. Family trauma is trauma that affects an entire family unit and is often discussed in conjunction with generational trauma or trauma that is passed through generations. Whether the cause of the trauma is a one time thing or a series of occurrences, trauma is often difficult to understand and defend against at the time. Family trauma can be especially difficult because though it affects a family unit, each individual may experience their trauma differently. So, what is trauma? While there are many ways in which trauma is categorized, trauma is the result of a negative event or experience. Trauma is an event or experience that causes significant psychological, physical, or emotional harm to the person or people experiencing it. It is typically something negative that happens too fast or too much for the brain to process it. Trauma can have significant impact on a person's ability to function or cope and may lead to lasting psychological or physical struggles. Trauma can come in many different forms, but there are many things that are generally considered traumatic events. In their life, a person may experience a traumatic event such as abuse. Abuse may be physical, emotional, or financial, or then physical abuse, or sexual assault, car accident, death of a loved one, physical injury, parental abandonment, witnessing a crime, accident, or death. One of the worst things which can happen due to a trauma is feeling unsafe. Traumatic events of experiences shatter the idea of the world being a safe place, as many occur suddenly and unexpectedly. They can make formerly safe spaces feel threatening and anxiety producing. Healing from trauma as a family can be especially difficult, as every individual experiences trauma differently. However, there is always hope for recovery. No matter who your family is, it probably has its secrets, or more likely unprocessed traumas that are now impacting multiple generations, even if they are unacknowledged. Many family dynamics don't give space for honest discussions about what members are feeling or what experiences have impacted their lives in significant negative ways. It is easy to share the positive experiences that you are having with loved ones, but much harder to be honest about any struggles you may be facing. However, avoiding certain topics, memories, or feelings doesn't help anyone process them at all. In fact, avoiding such things can sometimes make their impact on your life worse. While everyone's process of healing trauma is different, there are several steps that you and your loved ones can take to process family trauma. Recognize and acknowledge the traumatic experience or event is the first one. Then acknowledge the feelings that come with that traumatic experience or event. And the last, seek proper support. So if I talk about acknowledging trauma, acknowledging and sitting with the emotions that come from experiencing trauma can be difficult And in family units, each member will probably come to acknowledge these emotions at different times. It is important that each individual processes trauma in their own way and at their own pace. That said, communicating and talking about the trauma can be extremely positive experience as long as everyone's feelings are respected. Then next one is processing your emotions. The first step in processing your emotions is identifying what you are feeling as you feel them without distracting yourself or pushing them away. You can either sit with your emotions, acknowledging them and letting them pass, or use methods such as journaling to work through them. When you are working on processing your emotions, it is important to remember that emotions aren't processed overnight. It can take time to become comfortable with sitting with your emotions or even understand the wide variety of emotions you may feel about the experience. Giving yourself and those around you time to process feelings is important for truly healing from trauma. Lastly, seeking help. Seeking help and support can feel daunting, especially if you haven't fully accepted the reality of what you have experienced. While it is possible to work through some emotions on your own, if it feels too overwhelming or difficult, it is important to reach out for help or support. Having a support network of trustworthy family and friends can be really beneficial during this time, and finding a professional counselor or therapist may be something to consider if you are really struggling. No matter whether you find help and support, being as honest as possible and giving yourself grace as you navigate this process is extremely important. Take your time and don't let anyone, even yourself, make you feel like you should be healing at a faster rate than you are. Wherever you are in your healing journey, it's important to take time for yourself to just relax. If you are able, find time to go on a walk or do something active that helps to get you out of your mind and into your body. Talk to people about everyday things, and find ways to create a sense of normalcy, even if you don't feel normal quite yet. Know that in time, much of the pain you are feeling will diminish, even if it never goes away completely. This is not to say that there won't still be trials and bad days, or in any way saying that what you and your family experience is something that can be forgotten. Letting go is not necessarily about letting go of the pain, and more about letting go of the power that the pain can have on your life and the lives of your loved ones. So instead of discussing the book, you may be wondering why this woman has discussed traumas and healings. Anupama composed this novel, however, in order to heal. So she had fictionalized her soul. No matter how strong we all appear to be, there may be things in our lives that we need to heal in order to move on and forward. So I hope Someone to Blame can help heal as many people as it has healed the author. So Anupama, thank you for writing Someone to Blame. Thank you.
Thank you, Kanchana, for that lovely critique. It was wonderful. It was a very educative experience. You're always prepared. You're always full of positive feedback. Listening to you, whether you're talking about my work or somebody else's work, it's always something joyful. I know that you're very busy. She's involved in some programs at Guwahati, and she's still there. But she was supposed to be here, but then suddenly she had to go there to do some recordings because of that she couldn't come here. But then she's somebody who keeps her word. If she says yes, I'll be there, she would be there. Then, she just did this from that place while all that responsible running around doing whatever she's supposed to be doing. Thank you, Kanchan. I'm really, really grateful. Next, is Ms. Ansala. Ms. Ansala is a teacher. And, not a school teacher, but she's a teacher. And somebody who is always ready to encourage a fellow writer. That's the recommendation, comment I make. I think Recently, I read the second collection of poems, My Own, Paradigm. I loved that collection of poetry. I wrote a short review about it. I thought that it is something that everybody should have a look at, enjoy, experience. Ms. Ansala agreed to say something about, speak a few words about my novel, the poetry collection as well. This is that you are ready.
Yes,
shall I
Anupama.
start?
Yeah, we'll start. You can hear me, right? Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. Can you hear me, Anupama? Anupama, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just 1 second. Darling.
Okay. Shall I start?
This is, yeah, we're ready.
Okay. So, in looking into the novel, Someone to Blame, I would like to talk about the process of catharsis in literature. So, in the novel, Anupama starts with these lines in the first page. For the intended audience of this story is me. I am going to tell myself a story, and in the telling of it, I am trying to figure out the hows and whys of the state of my life as it stands at this very moment in history. With these words, I would like to look into the process of catharsis in literature. So, what is actually catharsis? It is a literary device used to stimulate a release of emotions. So, catharsis can be applied to any type of art or media that makes audiences feel intense emotions such as pain, sadness, but ultimately leads to a feeling of release. In looking into catharsis in a more detailed manner, it can be thought of as blowing of steam, because in the process of catharsis, art stimulates strong negative emotions. However, after that experience, audiences generally feel better. Looking into the history of this, Aristotle coined the idea with his belief that a good story should have the purpose of cleansing the audience's emotions. He believed that catharsis was necessary in the ending of tragic artistic works. For example, in his days, it would be a play. The end result of an experience of catharsis is a moral or spiritual sense of renewal, and audiences often describe feeling lighter after intensely emotional endings to a story. Essentially, catharsis brings audiences down with tragic endings, and then the audience feels that they have been able to release some of their own sadness, anxieties, or fears, along with what they felt as a result of the story. So, what should be the purpose of catharsis? So, Aristotle looked into this as well. When Aristotle first set out to examine the phenomenon of catharsis, he was asking himself why audiences enjoy great tragedies so much if they just leave us feeling sad. In a world where, for various reasons, many people find it hard to express the full range of their emotions, tragedies help us to do just that. Feelings like pity or empathy for a story's hero, sorry at the ending, and frustration over circumstances can help people express complex emotions and leave them feeling better. All these emotions can be seen in the novel. It is part of the human condition that feeling emotions is a requirement of living. Therefore, experiencing art that helps us to do this is a positive process for purging negative emotions. Looking into the examples in literature, one of the most famous is William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. They are hitting on concepts like forbidden love, loss and grief and rejection, many audiences find ways to relate with the characters and what is happening to us. The tragic double suicide in the ending helps audiences to purge some of their own complicated feelings on such heavy matters. And also in non-Western literature, catharsis is equally present, pointing to the idea that it is in its most basic form, a necessary and universal human experience. Let's consider Chinua Achebe's classic Things Fall Apart. It tells the story of an African village leader whose pride leads to his ultimate downfall. He loses everything and eventually kills himself. Nearly everyone can relate to having things go wrong, and even if it's not the same degree, they find that the tragic ending of this story helps to process feelings of loss, disappointment, and failure. I have seen all this in the novel, and I have wondered who the audience is. So, catharsis is the process in which a story's tragic ending allows audiences to experience profound emotional release. I hope Anupama felt the same. It helps to explain why people will sometimes seek out sad stories, music, and other forms of art. Processing heavy emotions is good for humans to do from time to time. In looking back into the audience of the novel, I think the main audience of the novel is the author herself. So Anupama, thank you so much for giving me time to express my thoughts, and thank you for everyone for listening.
Mrs. Clark, I'm very sorry. Once again, I messed up, I guess. My technical knowledge is abysmal. Usually somebody has to rescue me. So I would like, once again, I would like to thank Sansala for taking time out of a busy schedule, not only to read a book, it's a novel, 300 something pages. And then not only that, to write something down and to be willing to share that with others. She was under no obligation to do that, but she said, when I asked her whether she could do that, she said yes. Thank you very much, Ms. So that was very, very kind of you. I've learned from your presentation. Krishnathan, I was a bit worried. Something is wrong with my Facebook, so I couldn't trace you or send you a message. But I'm relieved to see you there. Krishnathan Sri Bhagavan is a very interesting person. I'm sure some of you know him. I know I was impressed by his ability to sing poetry. I don't know many people who can actually sing poetry these days. Poetry was supposed to be lyrical. Poetry was supposed to be, singable. But Krishnatha is one of those rare souls actually who sings poetry. First time I heard him singing, I was like, oh, like my mouth was hanging open. He's so very, very good at it. He makes conversations with poetry. So And he conducts a lot of poetry forums. He promotes poetry. He invites budding poets, established poets. It's like a melting pot where you can exchange ideas, hash things out, especially for younger poets, new people like me, to meet the established people is the go-to person, I guess. So Prashanta is going to say something about the written word. It is something that he is very much interested in. Prashanta, shall we?
Yes,
Give me
I
1 second
hope,
to get
yeah.
things organized, right?
Can you hear me, Anupama? Hello? I can't hear you now for some reason.
We can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Oh, but for some reason I can't hear you, but then, okay, shall I proceed?
Please do. I muted the mic here. That is why you can't hear me.
Okay. All right, well, to be very honest with you, I do not feel very qualified to talk about fiction per se, because I usually say rude things about fiction. So, so let me try and make a foray into looking at Anupama's book. I asked a friend of mine, what am I supposed to do? And they said, oh, you're supposed to go on and say nice things. So I said, oh, but I just can't say anything. I got to say something, try and be a little profound. So anyway, I've been looking at the world lately, and I don't know about you, but I've been finding it increasingly difficult to breathe at every level, from my toes to above my nose, from the ionosphere to the I don't know sphere. In clouds where I have permanent residence, and I've been finding it difficult to breathe. And then I got a copy of Madame Godakanda's book, and from the word go, I felt I was pulled in, not by the scruff of my neck, but almost for here I was in the here and now and the then and the tomorrow, having to face things I'd rather not face. So it was a battle being thrown in and out of the story as I read it. Someone to blame. It's as a young friend of mine, Pamodi, said, it is an apt title for our novel of today as we look to try and find out what is going on in our lives. And Anupama's novel belongs to not just 2022, but 2023. And it sometimes seems rushed, as if it cannot be contained, but it is yet restrained. It hasn't quite jumped into the swimming pool, as they say. So right from the start, I felt there was this drawing of lines, or a line many times, which had been grievously breached. So some may only see nervousness, which yet says, take it or leave it. She says that at the beginning, she says, it may be lies, it may be not. Basically, it is telling us with a touch of whimsy that we should be lucky to overhear a story that the author says is a conversation with herself, as a way of healing, with words as instruments of surgery, with English words. And I wondered about the facile facility of this English medicine, this imported complexity of Inglesi Behet to deal with, I guess, and mainly English disease. So the book made me breathe, because it made me exhale and think about many things. Because I think actually that in our lives, English is a fiction, because English is really, in its real sense, it's about the Industrial Revolution, and our English department knows nothing about the Industrial Revolution per se. And so I think we need to put English in its place. And I know that I belong to what is called the English import mafia, which is, into scaring people and making money off the nervousness people feel about the English language. And the English department kind of rules our lives, even though people say, oh, no, we're independent. But as the Minister of Justice just said with a capital J, the law exams must be in English, and we know what the language of justice will be then. for a long time and for still with us. I guess we're part of Roman Dutch law. So what does being confronted with a novel in English mean? I think the novel, as we are introduced to it generally, at least to me, is a kind of a highly manufactured and processed product of a multinational publisher, usually abroad, or you have hopes for a multinational publisher, one of those English publishers that are usually based in Washington next to Wall Street and the UN and Rockefeller Standard Oil. And the novel is usually a missile. It's usually aimed at us with arms of publicists and editors and fact checkers and lawyers and literary agents and hashtag, meme, tweet, F-book, multiple rocket launches. And it's meant to defoliate our minds, or rather deflate our minds. And what Anupama has done is carved out a sod of the soil of our world, of the earth and the sky, and thrown it back. And why do I say it's a sod? Because I feel our lives are yet unformed, unmined. We're trying to turn it into the steel that is required. So I feel I'm an interloper really here, because I really shouldn't be talking about fiction, because I've weaned myself off fiction. I've weaned myself off television, because it simply refuses to tell our stories. There's a kind of a willful blindness and a studied diversion. It's a privilege to not be able to think about the world around us. And I feel that art and science have been hijacked. And what we have are kind of conceits of a decadent capitalism that is not quite ours. It's like postmodernism, where we never really got to try modernism. So it's a kind of a luxury. And we, at least I myself, belong to a particular kind of class. You can call them Kalasuddas, or it's what I guess the great, falsifier, as he was called, what Macaulay wanted, to create a set of brown monkeys in India that'll carry on the English state of affairs. And I feel that somehow the novel is placed in that kind of a situation of where, we take on the accoutrements of what white people do all their, maybe let me put it this way. Since in the last 72 years, they've tried to create a kind of a middle class, or so-called, what they call in the US, they call a black bourgeoisie, So you get all these people playing tennis and golf and, writing novels, with a kind of willful blindness about what is going on in our real lives. And when you look at how art is established, you kind of have these rich people who they first steal and murder and do all kinds of business, and then they get into politics, to maintain that control over that power or money. And then maybe the third generation, they try to cover their tracks with art. So for me, the so-called Sri Lankan English novel is a kind of a big joke, because, and it's not only in Sri Lanka, I think it's in most of the countries of the world where we've not allowed to be able to develop our own modernity. And so when I read Anupama's novel, I felt, suddenly it was quite fascinating for me on several ways, because it's a kind of, you go from a quiet desk, a family that, according to the author, offers the whole neighborhood the local teledrama, whether there's lights or not. And it fittingly moves from family and private property to the state. And it's a kind of a boisterous ride, There you are thrust at the beginning, like we all are, at the Castle Street Teaching Hospital, experiencing what Anupama calls the daughters of Nightingale and the sons of hypocrites. And and we go through the courts and the prisons and the trials of a family. It's a bustling, raucous ride, and we end up, in the cemeteries. And along the way, we get history and geography, psychology and cosmology. We get a world with no quarter almost no one is sacred, no one is spared, young and old, cool up country and hot low country, shanty and suburb. And you get all these dates of, 1971, 77, 1980, 83, 1989. And here we are. And what I felt was, I'm not sure to say unromantic, and yet it was wistful for what may still be where it ends up. We end up being delivered again, or rather getting ready on a home, planning on another honeymoon. But what really struck me most of all in the novel was, if you can, I asked Anupama what she calls it exactly, but I felt it was what really struck me was her reference to the general strike of 1980, which she, in the terms of, she calls it 1982. And I got very upset. I was wondering, no, it wasn't 1982, it's 1980. But the reason why I point to it is because very few people in the English canon that is aimed at us, even mention these particular dates like the general strike of July 1980, which I think was a kind of a crucial turning point in our lives where you can just, sack 850,000 people and not realize what the consequences of doing such a thing would be. And what Anupama provides us in this novel is a kind of stories which kind of, reflect on those situations and the destruction that it caused. Anupama, I hope I've not been going on too long. Have I exceeded my limit? Am I making sense? Are there any? I can't hear you. Can you tell me again? Hello?
No, you have not exceeded your time.
Oh,
Very
okay.
interesting. Please go on.
Oh, okay. So, I don't know whether anybody wants to say anything rude back to what I have said, but in terms of how the, I just feel that what Anupama has done is she's carved out a bit of that nonsense and a bit of the sod of the soil of our world and thrown it back at, English, at the English department. I like to call I like to say that we are ruled by the English department. People say, oh, no, that's not true, but I do believe it's true, and I mean, maybe I don't. Maybe we can have a conversation because I've been going on, but we can see how English and the English novel is usually thrown and used at us. It's a good example right now about how they award and reward various things for being said, which kind of maintain their power. But I thank Anupama for taking the risk of having me even comment on such things that are beyond my province, but more power to her elbow. And I hope that, I hope that she will, I think what she has presented is something that we'll want to hear more about the Gorganda Pereira, amalgamation. I think that I think you've packed a lot into the book, and I'm sure you can pull it out and say lots of things in the coming years about what's going on. So thanks, Anupama. I don't know whether you have any comments about what I said about how English and the English novel, exists in our lives as a kind of a conceit. And I feel that what you've done is try to show that there are all kinds of things that, it just does not talk about. And I'm glad that you have tried to do that.
Thank you very, very much for that insightful presentation. As always, you are educative, you are forthright in your views about the world around us. I learned a lot by reading your articles, listening to you. Thank you once again for taking time to say something about what got out of my book. And the next presenter, the final presenter of today's program is Priyanka. Once again, those who have come just now, Newt, as I usually call him, has published several collections of poetry. He experiments with poetry. He conducts poetry forums, and he is a literary critic. And his latest pet project is trying to create interest in bridging the gap between the Sinhala poetry and English poetry. That's an unenviable task. What I have felt is people who write in English in Sri Lanka, they live in a separate world that is of their own. And most of us are unaware that there is this world of rich Sinhala poetry from which we can learn a lot. Sinhala poetry, as Malinda once had said in one of his articles, is in Sri Lanka at least, right? Far behind Sinhala English poetry, is far behind Sinhala poetry. Sinhala poetry is very experimental. There is an ongoing dialogue about the latest trends, world trends, and experimentations. It's a marvelous thing to listen to Sinhala, poetry circles. And by cutting us off from that circle, we are actually cutting our necks, I believe. I see being in contact with Newt and his circle as I have selfish motives because I learn a lot by listening to them. That is something I guess we should do. But then Newt has taken the initiative to bridge this gap, and he's doing a wonderful job. Somebody I look up to. I would like to hear what Newt thinks about my poetry and maybe the novel as well.
Thank you, Anupama, for inviting me to speak on your second collection of poetry, veteran poet Malinda Senegal and all the other poetry lovers. I am very happy to be associated with Anupama's book launch, Phoenix, I Am a Racist. At the outset, I should mention I am not an expert on English poetry. As well, I am not so fluent in English. However, Anupama is one of my close friends, and both of we have born same day on 8th of January 1971. So, addressing this gathering is privilege for me. As a Sinhala poet of new generation, I should tell it is very important our sensitivity toward Sri Lankan English poetry. So throughout this year, I also tried to build a bridge between these two communities. In that process, veteran poet Malik Seneviratna and Anupama Gurukanta helped me as much as possible. However, my speech is not a holistic approach on Anupama's poems. Here I try to share some thoughts of her poems. Before come to her next collection, before come to her new collection, I would like to discuss one of her poems in her maiden collection, Phoenix. Name of the poem is Faces. Faces. Which one of my faces should I wear today? The pink, the black, oh, should I wear the white? Bedraggle with much domestic use. Maybe the coat purple really burn, but without, oh dear, I go naked for a change. Let me please address you in my mother tongue when I leave. Anupamage me kaviya mama පළමුවෙන්ම කියවන්නේ මගේ ඉංග්‍රීසි දැනුම තාම අඩු තත්ත්වයක තියෙන මොහොතක. මම ඉංග්‍රීසි ඉගෙන ගන්න ගොඩාක් කැමති කෙනෙක් හැටියට. මගේ මුල් ගම හබරන පළුගස්ස ඒකයි අපිට ඉංග්‍රීසි ගුරුවරු තබා සමහර කාලවලට සිංහල ගුරුවරුත් ඉස්කෝලේ ගියේ නැහැ. අනුමාගේ ෆීනික්ස් කියන පොත ඉදක්වන දවසේ මම ඉදක්වන අවස්ථාවට සහභාගී වෙනවා. ඒ හේතුව තමයි මාලික සෙනෙවිරත්න සහ සුරේන්ද්‍ර රාඝව ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් කවි ගැන කතා කරනවා දකින්න තියෙන ආසාව නිසා. ඉතින් අනුපමාගේ කවිය හැබැයි මට එදා තේරුණ එකම කවිය පොතේ තිබුණා. එදා මට ඒ පොතේ කියලා තේරුණ එකම කවිය තමයි මේසස් කියන්නේ. ඒ නිසා මම මේක තෝරගත්තා. හැබැයි මේක ඇතුලේ තියෙන යම් කිසි දෙයක් මම මේක ගැන මට පුළුවන් විදිහට මම ලියාගත්ත දේ ඔබට කියන්න කැමතියි. In this poem, her view on ourselves is sarcastic. When I read last line of her poem, I go naked for a change. I remember one of the poems written by veteran poet Aryapancha Ranavira. Name of the poem is Nitara Sinasena Yodha. Ranavira ලියනවා බාරණැද්ද ඔබට ඔය ලෙස්ම. උදාහරණ අරවස රණවීර කියන්නේ තාම සංක්ෂිප්ත කාදරීතියක් අනුගමනය කරන කවිය මුලියනවා බාරණැද්ද ඔබට ඔය ලෙස්ම. Now I would like to move her second collection. Out of 38 poems, I would like to speak on 3 poems. First, I would like to give my attention to her poem Samanala, Out of Season. So I would like to invite Anupama to recite that poem.
Samanala, out of season. Out of season, those few brave the cold, wet solitude of the primavera Samanala, in her 7 veils of whispering mist, and offer their untamed will at the feet of the enlightened, ungrudgingly. There is a postscript for that, for those like-minded souls out there.
Thank you, Anupama, for reciting that poem. I think all of we can understand here, Anupama has touched something beyond the religious context. She is bold enough to evoke erotic feelings based on Samanala. when I read this poem, I remember one of the poems written by Imran Keith in Sinhala. අනුපමාගේ මේ කවිය මම පළවෙනියට කියවන්නේ Facebook poll එකෙන් මම ආකර්ෂණය කරගත්තේ සමනල out of season කියන නම. ඇත්තට මේ කවිය මට එදා සම්පූර්ණයෙන් වටහා ගන්න ගත්තා. මම ඩික්ෂනරි එකක් ඉස්සර කරලා තමයි කවිය කියවන්නේ. ඒ සමනල out of season කියන කවිය ඒ මාතෘකාව මට හරි සතුටක් ගෙනත් දුන්නා. මොකද ශ්‍රීපාද යන වාරයක් සහ අවාරයක් තියෙනවා. එසයි මාතෘකාවම හරිම අපි පද්ද කියන්නේ සිංහලෙන් කියනවා සංදිග්ධතාවයක්. ඒකට ambiguous කියලා අපි ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් කියන කාරණා. මම ඒ කවිය කියුවා. ඉන් පස්සේ මට අවසර දෙන්න අර අනුපමා කිව්වා වගේ මම උත්සාහ කරලා තියෙනවා ශ්‍රී ලාංකික ඉංග්‍රීසි ලියන අය සහ සිංහලෙන් ලියන අය අතර පුළුවන් අපේ පුංචි පාලමක් හදන්න. ඒ නිසා මේ තිම්රාන් කීර්ති කියන කවියත් සමනල කන්ද අසුතෙහි කියන්නේ සංස්කෘතික දැනුම් පද්ධතිය පාදක කරගෙන අනුපමා වාගේ රිලිජියස් කොන්ටෙක්ස්ට් එක ඇතුලේ නෙවෙයි වෙනත් සන්දර්භයක් තුල මේ කවිය ලියන්නේ. ඔහුගේ කවියේ නම ඉරසේවය. අසම සමයි කොහොමත් සමනල කන්ද විසමකම තමයි අප අඳුරන කන්ද සම සමහරුන් වනවැද සුර පුර හෙව්ව සුමන සමන් යනු සමනල යුවලක්ද අර රන් සමනල රෑණි එක සමනලියක් නෑනි තටු ලෙහුවට කළු අඳුරේ තහනම් ඉරසේවේ ඒ රන් සමනල ජෝඩු සමහරු කිරි කෝඩු උන් එකට නගිනවාලු වැඳලා බහිනවාලු තුන් සරණට තුන් සරණේ උන් සමගම තුතුවේ නොගිලෙමින් සීත ගඟුලේ කඳු සමගම තුතුවේ මම හිතන්නේ මේ ආගමික සන්දර්භයේ අරගෙන වෙනත් සන්දර්භයක ඔහු තියෙන ඔබට ගොඩාක් දේවල් හිතන්න තියෙනවා මම හිතන්නේ නොගිලෙමින් සීත ගඟුලේ කඳු සමගම තුතුවේ අපි නාපරපරේ විශිෂ්ට කාව්‍යයක් තිම්රාන් කීර්ති. As my second selection, I would like to discuss dear before session. Your milky scent gate crashes my party of one, shoots through my pinch nostril, short circuits my ribs, havoc with lungs, and I see myself carrying you in my arms, carrying you under my heart. You smile, my heart bleeds for 1,000 such smiles. The bell rings, you get off in a flurry of flannels into the October sun. Another ring, the bus move on, menopause, I tell myself. When I read this, my heart also vibrates with sound of the ringing bell. මේ කවිය කියවද්දි මම ටිකක් ඉංග්‍රීසි දන්නවා. දැන් ඔයාලා ඉංග්‍රීසි දන්නවා. එතන මට මේ කවිය තේරුණා. මේ කවියේ අම්මා කෙනෙක් නොවන කෙනෙක් වෙනත් දරුවෙකුගේ සිනහවක් දැකලා මාතෘත්වයෙන් වෙලෙන මොහොතක් අපට හම්බ වෙනවා. ඒ මාතෘත්වයෙන් වෙලෙන මොහොතේදී ඇයට වැඩි වෙලාවක් ඒ ආදරණීයත්වය පවත්ව ගන්න වෙන්නේ දරුවා අම්මත් එක්ක බසෙන් බහැලා යනවා. ඇය පාවිච්චි කරනවා මෙතනදී මට ඒක දැන් ස්ට්‍රෝන් ඔඩිටරි ඉමේජ් එකක් ඇති. කියනවා ශ්‍රව්‍ය චිත්ත රූපයක් ඇති. බෙල් එක රින් කරනවා දැන් බහින්න කියලා ඒකට බහැලා යනවා ආයෙ රින් කරනවා ආයෙ දරුවා දකින්නේ නැහැ. ඒ වෙලාවේ ඇයට ඇති වෙන කම්පණය තියෙන්නේ. ඒකයි මම කියේ මගේ හදවතත් ඒ බෙල් එකේ හදවතත් එක වයිබ්‍රේට් වෙනවා කියන්නේ. ඒ තමයි මාතෘත්වය. ඒක තමයි මාතෘත්වය. රවීන්ද්‍රනාථ ටාගෝර් කියන කවියා කියපු ඉතාම වැදගත් කාරණයක් මතක් වෙනවා. මේක මේ චින්තා ලක්ෂ්මී සිංහාරච්චි කියලා අපේ රටේ අති විශිෂ්ට ලේඛිකාවක්. ඇය බෙන්ගාලි දේශයට ගිහිල්ලා බෙන්ගාලි භාෂාව ඉගෙනගෙන ටාගෝර් එහෙම හදාරපු කෙනෙක්. ඇයගේ පරිවර්තන පොතක කියනවා තාගෝර් හරිම කැමතිලු බුදුන් වහන්සේ කියපු අර මාතායක අනියම් පුත්තං ආයුසායක පුත්ත මනුරක්කේ කියන කාරණය අපි සූත්‍රයක තියෙනවා. එක දරුවෙක් ඉන්න මවක්සේ ලෝකයට ආදරය කරන. අනුපමගේ කවිය හම්බ වෙන්නේ අපිට අන්නේ කාරණය. කුමක්ද? තමන්ගේ නොවන දරුවෙකුට මාතාවක් වෙන්න පුළුවන් අවශ්‍ය සෙනෙහස. ඒක මම හිතන්නේ මේ වෙලාවේ සමස්ත ලෝකයේම යහපත් කිරීමේ ප්‍රයත්නයේ සඳහා අවශ්‍ය වන ක්‍රියාවක්. මම හිතන්නේ බුදුරජාණන් වහන්සේ කියන්නේ මෙත්තා කරුණා මුදිතා උපේක්ෂා මේ මෛත්‍රිය අපට අවශ්‍යයි. මම කැමති වෙනත් කිවිජයක කවියක මෙතන භාවිත කරන්න. With this poem, I remember one of the poems written by Nisan Salaberta Lewis Dharmasena. My womb, a barren land, when no child ever played, no smile ever heard, no laughter ever sprinkled out. My womb, a barren land, there are no footsteps ever heard, no lullaby ever sung, no kisses ever held. My womb, a barren land, where love never flowed, no memories ever made, no child ever burned. Yes, my womb is barren land, yet my heart, where everything was, everything is. විසංසලාගේ කවියතර මාතෘත්වය අප වෙත සංනිවේදනය කරන ගුණය තියෙනවා. ඒ අලුතෙන් එන කිවිජ අපේ මාලින්ද සෙනවිරත්න වීමරි වැන්ඩ පූටන් වාගේ ඉතා විශිෂ්ට කවි කිවිජයන්ගෙන් පස්සේ අපේ අනුපමාලා නිසංසලා ධර්මසේනලා ඇවිල්ලා මේ දෙස් විදෙස් කාව්‍ය සම්ප්‍රදායන් හදාරලා ශ්‍රී ලාංකික ඉංග්‍රීසි කාව්‍ය පෝෂණය කරන අතරින් සිංහල කවියේ දක්වන ආදරණීය ගෞරවයක් එක්ක ඇතිවන දේ තමයි වැදගත් වෙන්නේ. මාලින්ද සෙනවිරත්න ඔහුගේ මොකක්ද කියන්නේ රේෂන් අවෝඩ් එක ගන්න වෙලාව ඔහු තා පැහැදිලිව කියපු කාරණයක් තමයි සිංහල කවිය ශ්‍රී ලාංකික ඉංග්‍රීසි කවියට වඩා ඉදිරියෙන් තියෙනවා. ඒක සිංහල කවියෙක් හැටියට මට මාලින්ද සේනවිරත්න ගැන විශාල ගෞරවයක් ඇති වුණු මොහොතක්. සමහරව අර ඉංග්‍රීසි අධ්‍යාපනය කියන පොඩ්ඩක් පාවිච්චි කරනවා ලංකාවේ ආභරණයක් හැටියට අර කියන්නේ ක්ලාස් එකක් මේන්ටේන් කරන මාලින්ද සෙනවිරත්න කියන්නේ මම හිතන්නේ ඒ අර්ථයෙන් ඉතාම විශිෂ්ට කවියක් විතරක් නෙවෙයි මම හිතන්නේ ඉතාම අපි කියන උපකාරශීලී මිත්‍රයෙක් අපි වාගේ ඉතාම දුෂ්කර පළාත් වලින් ඇවිල්ලා ඉංග්‍රීසිය වටහා ගන්න උත්සාහ කරන අයටත් ඔහු සහාය දෙනවා. We feel sometimes just like the voice of cricket when we read Anupamas and Nisansala's poem. Angek කියන්නේ පොදුවේ මේ අපේ අනුපමාගේ කවිය නිසංසලාගේ කවියක් කියවද්දි මට දැනෙන එක දෙයක් තමයි අර රාත්‍රියට එහෙම නැත්නම් සඳහා කාලෙක ඇහෙන රැහැයියෙකුගේ හඬ වාගේ දෙයක් ඇහෙනවා. මට ඒක ජීවිතේ පොඩි කාලේ ඉඳන් ඇහිච්ච දෙයක්. ඇයි දන්නේ මට තවමත් ඒක තියෙනවා. මම කියන්නේ මගේ ජීවිතේ නිකන් වර්ණ රූප වාහිනියක අර ඇන්ටනාව හෙලවුණාන් පස්සේ ඒක බ්ලැක් ඇන්ඩ් වයිට් වෙනවනේ. ආ එහෙම වෙන කෙනෙක් මම. ඒ නිසා මට අනුපමාගේ නිසංසලාගේ කවිය මට හොඳට දැනিলা තියෙනවා. Please let me please present one of the poems written by Chandimali Narayana in Sinhala that we can hear this melancholy thought. Chandimali Narayana කියන කිවිදිය ලියපු තත් සිඳ වයම හද වෙන කියන කවිය තියෙන කවියකත් මේ රැහැයි හඬ මට ඇහෙනවා. එයාගේ කවියේ නම මේ මා උපන් මාසෙ බොහෝ කලකට පිට එක වැහි වැටෙන උදයක අම්මාට හිනාවක් කරගෙන හඬමින් මෙලොව ඇසලාගෙන මේ මා උපන් මාසෙ හැම දෙසැම්බරයේම හිත වෙලා ගන්නා උමතු පාළුව අදත් ඇවිදින් අටි ලකුණක නොමැති තුහින රැඳි කඳුළු වී කවුළු වීදුරුවෙන් තුහින රැඳි කවුළු වීදුරුවෙන් බලමි ගෙව්යන දෙස බොඳව ගිය සිද්ධුවමකි ඒ මත අන්තිමියෝ බෙරුව සෝකී සුරන් රැල්වල මල දෙයක රැඳි සීතල අපහැදිලි හැඟුමක් වී රැගෙන යයි හිත තිබුණු මිහිර හාත්පස අඩ අඳුර ඇති කඳුළු මන්දාරම බිඳ සීතල දෙසැම්බරේ දියෙවි මහවැලි මැද අර මෙලන්කලික් ටෝන් එක අපිට ඇහෙනවා චන්දිමාලී ආරච්චිගේ කවිය. And I would like to present another Sinhala poem Anupama written by Aryavansa Ranavira. I use this poem because it expresses something. Images are house stones, auditory images and visual images. Ranavira මේ කවිය ලියලා තියෙන රෑ පිස්සු කියන. මම හිතන්නේ අතිශය තීක්ෂණ ලෙස අපිට දැනෙන මොහොතක් මේ ශ්‍රාව්‍ය සහ දෘශ්‍ය චිත්‍ර රූප කවියක් ඇතුළේ කොහොමද වැඩ කරන්නේ? රෑ පිස්සු අඩසඳ කෙස් කඩාගෙන වියරුව ඇඳි වලාකඩ හල හල සොය සොයායයි දිලිනු තම අනෙක් අඩ සොය සොයායයි දිලිනු තම අනෙක් අඩ වැහැයි නගති ඇතුළට හූරා මේ වැස්සෙන බෙලෙක් කඳ වන ගැබ වදයි ඉඳ හිට පලි ගහන බක්සු හඬ. Next, I would like to discuss on we walk in circles. Anupama, could you please recite that poem?
We walk in circles. I walk in circles, wishing for a neat end to our story. Then at the corner of a forgotten street, I meet ourselves, those I abandoned in my hurry to let go, and look at our forlorn bittersweet selves, still waiting at the crossing, opposite ends, by the lights at the crossroads. Dive into our hearts through the vacant windows of our being recklessly and wish that I'd been kinder to ourselves and to myself in my hurry to let go and leave.
Thank you, Anupama. We all have this kind of experiences, but nobody can erase them and rewrite. එමන් ලියලා කියන එක මම කිව්වේ කවිය ගැන පොඩි උත්සාහයක් මම ගන්න කිසි කවිය ගැන කතා කරන්න. මට මේ කවිය දැනෙන්නේ අපි පුංචි කාලේ තියෙන අපේ ප්‍රේමයේ පිළිබඳව අත්දැකීම් එහෙම අපිට හිතෙනවා අපි එහෙම නොකළා නම් ඒක ඊට වඩා හොඳ අන්තයකට හොඳ අවසානයකට යන්න තිබුණා නේද කියලා. ඒව හරියට අර රාත්‍රී කාලයක අපි ඒ කාලේ හිටියේ ලයිට් නැති ගෙවල් වල පුංචි කුප්පිලාම්පුවක් පත්තු කරපුවාම හරිම අමුතු ගතියක් දැනෙන්නේ මේ කටු මැටි පිටියේ කුප්පිලාම්පුවේ වැටෙනවා අපේම හේව නැලියේ කුප්පිලාම්පුවේ අපි දකින්නකොට. දැන් මේ අනුපමාගේ මේ කවිය කියවද්දි මට මගේ අත්දැකීමක් මතක් වුණා. මම රෙටිගල කඳු ප්‍රාන්තේ කඳු වැටිය පාමුල ගම්මානයේ හිටියේ. ඒ රෙටිගල කඳු වැටිය පාමුලම තව ගමක් තිබුණා ගලපිට ගල කියලා. මම පළුගස්සව කියන ගම. මම 11 පන්ති ඉන්නකොට වාගේ මගේ පන්තියේ යාළුවෙක් හිටියා සුනිල් කියලා උට නංගි කෙනෙක් ජය හිටියේ 10 පන්ති මම 11 ඊට අර කාටවත් නොකියපු ප්‍රේමයක් මට ඇය ගැන තිබුණා ඒක තමයි මගේ හිතේ ඇතිවෙච්ච පළවෙනි ප්‍රේමය ඒක මම විතරයි දන්නේ ඒ ඉතාම ලස්සන ඒ නැගෙනහිර මම දක්වපු ආදරේ පස්සේ කාලෙකත් මට හිතෙන්න ගත්තා අනේ මං යාගෙන් ඇහුවේ නෑනේ මගේ ප්‍රේමයේ බාර ගන්න කැමතිද කියලා. අදත් මට කොහෙද හරි අර ජෝතිපාලගේ අර ගීතයක් තියෙනවානේ ඔබ නේද සුරකෙල්ල පෙම්ලෝකේ ගිනිදැල්ල කියලා. ඒ කියනකොට මට මතක් වෙන්නේ මගේ පළවෙනි අප්‍රකාශිත ආදරය ගැන. ඉතින් අනුපමයි කවියේදී කියනවා මීට වඩා හොඳ එන්ඩෙක්කට මේක යන්න තිබුණා වාගේ අදහසක්. ඒ සුත්තගාමිනී බණ්ඩාර කියලා කවියක් ඉන්නවා බදුල්ලේ. පහලත් සමහර විට තුමුල නමුණු තුල ගිරිහිස උදුග සඳ මඩල දුටුමෙට රැවටුණා තමයි කියන කවිය ලියපු. ඒ ගීතය ලියපු රචකයා වුන් වරක් ලියලා තිබුණා. සිත්තරාන්නනි ඔබ අඳින සිතුවමසේ මැකිය හැකිනම් මගේ අතීතය මම බෝපතක් වන් හදවතක් ඇති බුදු කෙනෙක් වෙන්නම් මම වෙන තතක් වන් හදවතක් ඇති බුදු කෙනෙක් වෙන්නම් කියලා අපි හැමෝම කැමති සමහර අපේ අතීතය මෙහෙම නොවි මෙහෙම වුණා නම් කියලා හිතන්න. අනුපමාගේ කවියෙන් ටච් කරන්නේ ඒක. මම ඒ නිසා තමයි කවිය තෝරගත්තේ. Finally, I should tell I would like to read more from Anupama as Professor Kamani Jayasekar has mentioned in her foreword for Phoenix. I am racist. Thank you again for inviting me to address this gathering. Thank you, Anupama.
So I don't think I need to tell you why I invited him. That is the reason why he reads so widely. Talking to him is like talking to an encyclopedia in singular poetry. You just mention a topic and he comes up with, so many poets who have written about the particular topic. And he knows things in detail, personal details and techniques and all that. So it's lovely to speak to him. There are so many singular poets like that. And once again, I'm telling you, by limiting ourselves, those who are writing in English, by limiting ourselves to our little niches and circles, and we are preventing fresh blood from coming into our writing. So I'm privileged to call Newman as a friend. Because, whenever he has these functions, he asks me to take part in them. So whenever I take part in them, I always learn an immense amount of things. So thank you very much. It was a wonderfully kind introduction and learning experience. We'll have some tea. Okay, about this tea business. Actually, I was unwilling. I was wondering whether I should have the launch or not, because times are really hard now, expenses are very high, and then I was wondering whether I should actually have this. But then I was not sure I have the energy to write another collection of poetry or write another novel. Manik had said I should write another novel, but then I was thinking about it, and then I was just about to give it up, and then I said, okay, maybe I should find somebody to sponsor this event. Then I just put up a Facebook post, and then my school friends, Adi and Gayatri, they said that they are going to sponsor the event, which was wonderfully generous thing. Gayatri, I must tell you, Gayatri is being honored. You have last name. So she comes from this artistic background, and then, she's somebody who is there for everybody. She's kind of a center around which all of us navigate. Like, she's like the sun and we are like the planets, and she's always supporting all of us. And I must Master thank them for taking that burden off me and making this possible. So let's have some tea. And then after that, we'll have a brief question and answer session where we might just talk about